DataFlex and security. The title wasn't even mine. I said at EDUC I want to do a presentation, and suddenly there was a DataFlex and security presentation. And I thought, okay, what should be my focus? Because security is a very broad subject. So I thought maybe it should be cryptography API, because we already support that a little bit. We use it internally. Or maybe it should be the crypto API next generation that Microsoft made up a few years after the first one. I unlocked this partially, made a lot of unit tests to make sure that it all works perfectly. And it's all very technical. But I think it is very appropriate to start about data access and data protection. When I speak with other people, also here, and some people say, okay, it's not really our responsibility to do a lot of things about security. SSL is something for a system administrator, for instance. We don't have to do that. Passwords is something the user has to do. We don't really have to do much about that. And I think that is not really true. We also have some responsibility to data protection. Let me introduce myself right now. This is the first time I speak for data access on any conference. My name is Jeroen Steehouder. I work for data access now for over 2 years. I have worked with DataFlex 3.1 and 3.2 for over 8 years, a long time ago. That was really awesome in those DOS terminal things. After that, I've been working also as a subcontractor for the German Bundeswehr, creating a custom Android platform with increased security. And that was very interesting, very, very technical. And I learned a lot about cryptography and security there. And I took that expertise back to data access, so I want to increase security awareness a little bit more in the entire community. This is my rule number 1 when talking about security. Think. And it sounds very simple, but it's actually not that simple. The first mistake I made when I started out with security things was, okay, I need the user login, the password, I need to store that somewhere securely. So I went to Google and I said, okay, password encryption. That was my first mistake. I was searching for a solution, even though I did not have the knowledge. Encryption is not the right solution in this case. I should have searched for password storage or secure password storage. So I got into a lot of threads about password encryption. Some were 20 years old and they looked like something interesting. They weren't the right solutions for me. So think means really think. Be very careful about what you find online, because a lot of stuff is outdated. The security world is always progressing, and the internet keeps everything on there for a long, long time. Another part of thinking is that you have to sometimes just imitate a user to find out what are they doing and do I need to do something about what they are doing. If you try to imitate a user, you have to act like a real user. So for instance, you choose their kind of passwords, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can laugh, you can think this is not serious, but it is. It's pretty much the number 1 on every password dictionary in the entire world. People choose this. They choose Jesus. It's not going to save you. And it's quite funny because Mohammed isn't much better anyway, so religion doesn't matter in password world. Now this one's quite funny. Does anyone know what this is? NCC 1701. Yes.
Star Trek.
Exactly. It's the model number for the USS Enterprise in Star Trek. Now if you know this and you think, okay, I'm being original, you're wrong. It is actually in the top 200 passwords for most technical websites. So this is not a secure password. Now what is more not secure, like your dog's name, your children's name, years of birth and stuff like that. I mean, you can choose it as your password, but it's also on Facebook. So it's not secure. If someone is targeting you specifically, they know this. And all the dog names are in their dictionary list, so if they want to crack your password, it's not that hard. If you act like a real user and you have to choose a password hint or a secret question, one advice to you, never build that into your software. Never ever build that into your software, because people do things like this. 6x1, and the password is 111111. The examples here are from an Adobe hack a few years ago, so these are realistic examples. 6 long QWERT, that was the hint. Well, not that hard to crack. 1 through 8, very easy. And my personal favorite, and I'm not going to tell you what the password is, you can think of it yourself, rhymes with ass word. I'm not kidding, it's in there. This is what users do. And we can say, okay, it's their responsibility to come up with a good password, but is that realistic? No. They won't come up with a good password, most of them. Some will, but most won't. So somewhere there we can say, okay, this is partially our responsibility as well. We have to make it hard for hackers to get these passwords, even if the users are doing something very stupid. And in these cases, the examples I've shown you, you can at least make sure that they use at least 8 characters. There's a lot of people who choose less characters if they can, and that's also a bad choice. You can make sure they can't enter patterns on the keyboard. You can put in a dictionary and check against those 100,000 or 1 million most used passwords. Those lists are online. You can download them, put them in your software, and check against them. Another advice when it comes to thinking is that you can put on a white hat. In the hacking world, you have the black hats, the gray hats, the white hats, and there are more grays. The white hat is the person who tries to find vulnerabilities without any personal gain. Not for reputation, not for money, anything. So white hat is what we are using for our own software. I'd actually like to give it a different name in the data access world. I came up with the unauthorized data access hat. You put it on, like a rubber ducky, you put the hat on, and you're only thinking about how can I get unauthorized access to the data in my software. When you do that, it can actually help you look for the weaknesses. What are the valid means of logging into the software, and can I hack into that? So you're looking at the password storage. Is that secure? You're looking at the password hints, for example. If they are there, you'll use them to get in. You also have to look at where is the data. It's in the database, but the database is pretty secure usually. But it's also on the wire, between the client and the server. A man-in-the-middle attack. And that's where, for instance, HTTPS comes in. With a good encrypted connection, it doesn't matter where you are, outside the office, inside the office. If someone is somewhere in the middle between the client and the server, using HTTPS mitigates this attack. But there's more places where the data is stored, and those are very often forgotten. I read about a leak 2 days ago, where someone in Europol downloaded a few terrorism files onto an encrypted USB key, took it home, and then put it on a personal network attached storage at home, which was not secure at all. And it was actually even accessible via the internet. So there are always other copies and backups. How well are backups protected? You can always say that is the system administrator's job. Yes, the backups are, but the other copies are not always. We always think about enabling our users, enabling the software users to do what they need to do. But we also should think about what should we prevent them from doing. We put in something about roles and some access, but it's very easy often to extract stuff. Yesterday we had a presentation by John about some new features in DataFlex 19. He mentioned encrypting the connection string password. Well, that's a first step to it, because at this time, if you're a Windows user, you can usually just look up the password in the connection int and connect to the database without your software. So everything you built in your software to protect your data doesn't work if they access SQL outside your software. You need to secure that. Yeah, I have this extraction. I thought I was being original, but it's a truly English word and it's the opposite of an introduction. Up till now, it's not been very technical, what I've been telling you. That's what this says. And I want to show you something very useful, something very easy, that you can use on all your projects. It's very nice that system administrators can do it, but it's also nice if you can do it yourself and you know how to do it. This small technical gift is a very good first step to increase the security, and it is HTTPS. I don't know how many people of you are running a web app without HTTPS? Only a few, okay, that's good. How many are running web apps with HTTPS? No, that's even better. How many people buy certificates for the HTTPS? That's quite a few. Are people using Let's Encrypt here? What? No one? Okay. Let's Encrypt is an internet consortium built by several very big organizations, and they have set their goal that everything on the internet should be encrypted in a few years from now. So they said everyone should be able to generate a certificate without cost, without much effort, and secure their website. If you don't do that, then things like this will happen in the very near future. Firefox has, the Mozilla group has announced that very soon in Firefox you will get these kind of messages if you try to log in on a website without a certificate. If it's not encrypted, you'll get this message. You don't want that for your software. Even if it's on an internal network, you don't want your users, your customers to see this, because it will give them a weird feeling about the security of your software. Okay, this was supposed to be a hidden sheet. We're doing a small demo now of how easy it is to do that. This is another useful thing, by the way. KeyPass. Do people know this? No? I personally don't know any of my passwords. Well, 2 or 3 maybe, but none of the others. They're all in here. An encrypted storage on my local disk. Every password is unique, randomly generated, 32 characters if possible, 20 if not. I don't know my passwords. I don't know how to log in my banking software. I have it all in here. I know one password, and that's the one to get in here. This is very annoying. So, to log into my demo, I'm going to open the SCANDUC demo VPS and let the program type the password for me. And I'm in. What I'm going to do, I have prepared this VM with a simple auto entry touch website. You can reach it on the SCANDUC02.daelab.net or SCANDUC3.daelab.net. It works fine. I'm going to secure it now, just to make sure you understand that it's not a cheat. You can see that HTTPS is not really working at the moment. Taking a long time, and then it will say, I have no idea what to do. So this is the virtual machine I'm working in, and I'm opening a command prompt as administrator. Let's Encrypt is very easy. You can just download it. It's an exe and some DLLs. You just put it on your machine on a permanent location, and I will explain later why. But it handles everything for you. You look into IIS, what kind of websites you're running, which kind of bindings you have running, and then it will simply propose, okay, which one do you want to have a certificate for? You say, I want this one, and it will generate the certificate, install it, and everything. But that's why you need an administrator access. Okay, this is readable. So when I run it, first time, you already see some real funny information, of course. There's a little bit of a technical thing, you can read through it. One important thing to notice is that it says renewal period 60. All certificates that you get from Let's Encrypt are valid for only 90 days. That is actually a security measure. Because if you ever get hacked, if those certificates are stolen, they will only be valid for a very short period and then they're no longer valid. All browsers will complain and everything. After 60 days, you need to renew your certificates. And Let's Encrypt will have a job. It will set it up for you automatically. It will run every day to check which certificates need renewal, and it will automatically do that for you. You don't really need to do much for that ever. You need to enter an email address. And it already says it's only for renewal fail notices. Well, that's very useful. I'm not going to do that right now. Then it says, do you agree to the terms of service? If you're like me, you don't read them, so you just say yes. And here it is already. It says I have two site bindings, SCANDUC02 and SCANDUC03. Which host do you want to get a certificate for? Now at this moment I'm hosting it on both. Both bindings are for the same website, and actually that's what I want. I want both to be secure, so I'm saying okay, no. Okay. There's a command line option that says some, which means that you can have multiple domain names into a single certificate, which is very useful in this case. Now if I run it with that, it already knows my email and stuff, so it won't ask again. And now it says, instead of two options for each site binding, it now says I only have one site, which is called IIS Web Automobile. Now that's the one I want. So number 2, do it. Now, normally when you register a certificate or buy one, you need to provide information to the person issuing the certificate, and they will check, are you the owner and stuff like that. Let's Encrypt does this differently. It can change some things in your IIS, and it works with a challenge response. So in the communication with the servers from Let's Encrypt says, I will ask you for this string on your subdomain, this URL, and you have to give me this response. And if you cannot do that, you don't own the domain, so you won't ever get that certificate. So this is like a fully automatic check, are you the owner of this domain? That's why it's so fast and so easy. Now it's done a lot of things. It is completely installed now actually. I now have the option to run the renewal process as a different user, but I don't want that. It just works as an administrator. Press enter to continue, and it's done. And to prove that, I have to show you. It timed out. Now try again. And we're in. And if you look at the certificate information here, it says SCANDUC02, and if you go further into a lot of details, you can see that it's been issued by Let's Encrypt Authority X3, which is good. Pretty much every browser that is current will support this, including mobile devices. So you will not have any issues unless very old devices still need to be supported. Somewhere in there, you will have to believe me, because if I search it can take a while. It must be, yeah, here it is. Alternative names. This is what I meant with the SAN. It's called this subject alternative name. That's part of the certificate. So these two names, SCANDUC02 and SCANDUC03, are both supported by the same certificate, and that's why it always works. So this is it's free, it's fast, it's easy. There's no reason not to use it, ever. And if a system administrator, a customer says, I don't know how to do SSL or it's too expensive, you can always say, use Let's Encrypt. Thank you for your time. This is my final sheet.
You showed how to generate a certificate for your domain, whatever you have. But what about all the applications that are being run in the default application pool, or the default website? What would happen? Would they require a certificate as well?
I'm sorry, I don't hear the question.
If you don't run your application with a domain, but in the default website, would it
require... If you're
require...
running the default website using the local host name or something like that, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Then you will get errors. You cannot register a local host because Let's Encrypt will try the challenge on the local host, and that won't work. And if you have a fallback, so if you have 2 domain names registered, but there are more that you can use theoretically to access the website, then you will get errors in the browser saying, okay, this certificate is not valid for this domain name.
So that means that you cannot run applications or websites in the default website anymore?
If you put the bindings in, you can run it there in IIS.
Yes, but standard is set up to run in the default.
That's true.
And if you use the password, then on one hand Firefox will say this is no good, and on the other hand you can't make a certificate. That's what we are up against.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So if you deploy an application, it should not be in the default application pool. And it's not that hard to set up. It's not hard to set up.
I didn't get how it is that connection back to you. So it knows it was actually your site. It was protected.
Maybe I can show it. It's very difficult to see it in here. This entire script makes sure, and you can see it here, answer should now be browsable at http SCANDUC16 well-known Acme challenge, blah, 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 blah. That is what the script is arranging. So the Let's Encrypt server will ask for that URL, which is on my domain name. And the response should be exactly what the server communicated to me before.
So it basically places a temporary file there.
It places a temporary file within your website. That's pretty much what it does. And it's something you can't easily fake. So if I would register a google.com on my IIS will probably allow it, but no one will reach it. And Let's Encrypt won't reach it either. So they will do the challenge, but they won't get the right response ever.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, one comment there. Isn't it our responsibility, you were talking about password, isn't it a thought for all of us developers that we stop making password length in the database for 10 or maybe 15 characters and instead launch that to a 50 or even 100, so we encourage our users to use password phrases instead?
Yes, I think so. I believe Nick yesterday said something about an extended workspace that we have, that we're actually using internally already a little bit, with new functionalities and extended functionalities. I created something we use internally already. It's actually a 256 byte or character length field. And we are indeed hashing and storing our password securely for new customers. And it's even so flexible that we can make sure that it will also work for the future, because in the security world everything progresses. It's like a cold war going on. The hackers, they find weaknesses and we are trying to fix it, and then they find something else and we're trying to fix it. So if you create something new now on the area of security, you must make sure that it's future-proof. So I also store a password method ID into it, which is number 1 at this time. But if at some time the method that I'm using is considered insecure, we can create an extra one, which is number 2, And then slowly you can migrate everyone onto storage method number 2, so it's future-proof. But you have to be very flexible, and this, it works for us, but I don't think it's releasable to the public at the moment, and I'm not sure we're going to do that ever, but we should, maybe. It's very difficult for us to release such things, because if we say, okay, this seems secure, then it also puts a little bit of responsibility on us, which we might not want, because, as I said, the security world is always progressing, and if other people are not keeping up with everything that's going on, then they come to us if things go wrong. Yes?
One more question. I'm thinking of this from a developer's perspective. I mean, when you deploy a website, you can go all the miles to make it secure and so on. But when you're firing up your IDE and you're making a web application, then in fact you should use HTTP on in the developing process as well then.
You should test it, yes. But I don't think you need to develop on HTTPS all the time. It will make a lot of debugging on several layers also harder.
Yes, that's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm thinking of. But at least you would have to switch off the password thing while developing, because otherwise Firefox will give you an error here.
Yeah, true.
That's annoying. I know it's not DataFlex's fault, but it's annoying anyway.
It is, I know.
Okay. Thank you, Jeroen.